Hey guys, so just continuing with our solving equations, but this time we're going to actually end up getting imaginary numbers. Um, I was actually caught up in grading, so you might hear the bell actually uh, go off in the background here in a minute, but we'll try to work through this video real quick. So um, in this problem here, right, we want to isolate whatever's being squared. I'm going to subtract 3. I'll end up dividing by 3. So let me write this for you real quick. Right, we divide both sides by 3. I'm trying to get this parentheses, which is being squared, by itself. So nothing changes. Keep doing the same type of problems we've been doing, but now at this point we say we got the square root of -8. And as long as this negative is underneath the radical, we're going to work with this imaginary number that we represent with the letter I. Other than having I in our answer, we break down 8 just like we would if this was not a negative underneath the radical. So 8 breaks down to being 2 root 2. But instead of just 2 root 2, because this negative, it's 2I root 2. And then finally, to get our answer, we just subtract 1. So you would have solved this problem the same exact way had there not been this negative. The only difference is we now have to represent that negative with the letter I. All right. In this next problem, same deal. All right, we're going to add 6. There's the bell. We'll work through it. We're going to add 6 over. And in doing so, we should get -12. Right? We would divide both sides by 4 and get -3. We've isolated what's being squared. We take the square root of both sides. Oops, ignore that. All right, the parentheses are gone. Now, 3 doesn't break down, okay, but I still can't leave it with that negative underneath. So anytime you take the square root of both sides, we have plus or minus. Where do I represent that negative with, or what do I represent it with? This imaginary number we call I. And finally, just add 2 to the other side. So our answers are structured the way we've seen them the last few days, right? Now they just have this letter I in them. All right, in the third problem, there's nothing for me to add or subtract over. I just have to begin by dividing by 2. Okay, I square root both sides. Again, we have a negative underneath, which means we have to represent with I. But we have a perfect square. All right, so it's not just going to be plus or minus 4, it's plus or minus 4I. I'm going to subtract 3 to the other side, but you can't group these, right? It would be like grouping like terms. So I can't go anything beyond this because -3 is a real number, 4I is an imaginary number. So we have to keep them separate. All right, and finally, looks a little different. Okay, we still have to just isolate the term that's being squared. Square root both sides. And now think about breaking down 18, right? So if you need to go off to the side and do a little factor tree, you can certainly do that. Think about how 18 would simplify. So 9 is a perfect square factor of 18. So 3 is going to come out, a 2 stays underneath. We know we always have plus or minus, but it can't just be 3 root 2 because I have to show that there was this negative that was underneath the radical. And that's why it's plus or minus 3I root 2. All right, so we'll continue working on some practice problems, but I figured I'd make this video real quick. And this way it's just kind of all of us, whether we're at home or in school, will be able to view it, go back and review it if we need to. But it's a good resource for us to have. All right, guys, have a good one.